Good afternoon, Americans. This is your favorite alien on the afternoon of Wednesday, June 28th, 2023. Sitting in for Paul Harvey this afternoon. Stand by for a special commentary reiterating Paul Harvey's concerns. Sorry I haven't been around for a couple days. I was in the hospital, had another incident with my pacemaker, which the hospital couldn't find any problems with it, but it shocked me. And I know a lot of you who have pacemakers and defibrillators understand the shocking feeling. It's not a very good one. But today's commentary for Mr. Harvey. And Mr. Harvey, if you're up there, wrote the boss. And I think it was 1989 that you did this. Because it was, you said that it was recently the wall came down, so I'm assuming it was 1989 when the the wall came down in Berlin, and for all intents purposes, the Cold War was over. A new order, as President George H.W. Bush said at the time. A new world order. Boy, was he wrong about that. But Mr. Harvey, you were speaking to a group of your colleagues, and you were speaking on integrity and discretion by journalists. And even in 1989, you know how vicious the journalists were back then. I can tell you they're 100 times more worse today than they were in 1989. They love to, as you said in your little speech there, and I hope people look you up and read the video that you made and the speech that you made on integrity and discretion by journalists. And what you reported there, journalists are supposed to be journalists. But if, like you said, something does not approach the national security, well-being of the country, and if you got gossip over the president or anybody else, well-known figure, they like to do that because they like to kick them when they're down. And they're not journalists anymore. They are people in the melee. And a lot of journalists do it today. CNN and Fox are two examples of big companies that do it today. And I remember that you were talking that 25 years earlier, so 1989, 25, so in 1964 or around there, which it started in 1961, by the way, Mr. Harvey. When I was 19 years old, in 1979, or 1978, I came across this, which the United States would disallow about 5 or 6 years later, and it became an open book. You, as you said, went with your pal, the Reverend Billy Graham, to a golf outing at the West Virginia resort of the Greenbrier. And during that time, when you were there playing golf, you found out about the Greenbrier. That it was a bunker for the United States government for nuclear purposes. Went down on the hotel, and below the hotel, about 300 feet or so, there was a bunker with all kinds of foods and lodgings and communication equipment and everything. It was pretty good for its time. I've been to the Greenbrier and I've seen it. It's a museum now. They let you go down there now. But in 1989, when you said this, it was just about almost being declassified by then. It was obsolete, remember? And remember, you also had Area 51, Cheyenne Mountain, over there in Colorado, next to the Air Force Academy. They also have a little place down there. And don't forget about Camp David, all the stuff that they put on there. The people in Greenbrier in West Virginia, they knew about this. And they speculated, yes. Then it took you 25 years to tell the public what you knew, and you were probably one of the first ones to know it. And to this day, when I heard you say that back in 1989, that's why I admire you so much, because you are a true journalist. You're not what the CNN journalist, and I like Wolf Blitzer a lot at CNN, but he's becoming more like the new partners here, especially with this Russia thing and the Trump thing. Trump is bad, yes. Trump has done some bad stuff, yes. But a journalist should report, I got these documents. It shouldn't report whether Trump should be tried or convicted. That is not a journalist's due. That is up to the courts. And no journalist should have any opinion on this. And that's what you were trying to tell them in 1989. And boy, when they found out of the stuff that you reported in that little thing there, they came at you with guns blazing, didn't they? Yeah? Because if you would have told them that that Reverend Billy Graham had Parkinson's, and you were one of the first ones to know it, and you didn't report it. Or Arthur Ashe had AIDS. Wow. Or when you knew that Lady Diana had attempted suicide way before she met the prince, and she was a teenager. You never reported that. You did, however, report 2 months ahead of time that Queen Elizabeth was pregnant with Prince Charles. Oh, Mr. Harvey, I love you for doing that. And you were right when you said, yeah, that didn't affect anything. It should have been private, yes, and I understand what you meant by that. But I don't understand those people that came at you guns blazing, and those journalists who have stocks and bonds, and they report on them without telling the public that you have some interest yourselves in what you're reporting. Or, you have put $20, $50, $100, $1,000 into this person's campaign, and therefore you're reporting on his opposition with a vengeance. I understand that, Mr. Harvey. And this is what I'm trying to say. That 34 years after 1989, journalism is no longer around, and you had died in 2009. And to this day, if you did what you did back in 1989, these journalists would eat you alive today, especially the ones in Fox and CNN. Did you see what they did with the Russia thing? With both Putin and the guy from Wagner there? And what they're doing to Trump? And the Fox is trying to do the Biden. Hey, why can't we do this to Biden too? Hunter Biden and Biden. or the Democrats trying to do it to the Republicans, Republicans trying to do to the Democrats, and CNN and MSNBC and Fox and all the rest of you extremist journalists trying to do to the American people. When journalism was established, you were supposed to have integrity and discretion. 100 years ago, on August 2nd, a president died in San Francisco, and he was the first one to start what you call political campaigning during his office. And that's what he was doing. But he got diverted to San Francisco on a train. They never did explain why he diverted to San Francisco. When I was a kid and I read about President Warren G. Harding's death on August 2nd, 1923, I couldn't believe it. That the journalist at the time, and you notice I said journalist, Mr. Harvey, oh boy. And the joke was, that he was having hanky-panky. That was a big joke around when I was a teenager in the 70s. That, Mr. Warren G. Harding was having hanky-panky. Well, he had a lot of women. He was a womanizer. Worse than John F. Kennedy, 40 years later. But you notice that he was a well-liked president. He was in the mold of Ronald Reagan. Would be another Republican in his mold in the 1980s. And Ronald Reagan's Iran-Contra affair, why it damaged him, didn't do the damage that it did to Warren G. Harding. Today, Warren G. Harding is not looked at and esteemed. And the way that what happened, the way it was done, his wife embalmed him a few hours after he passed away, so there was never anything done to check and see, did he die of a heart attack? He did have a heart issues, yeah. Or did he die hanky-panky? Well, nobody knows about that, see? And the so-called doctor that he had was a quack anyway. But the doctors in Washington didn't do what the doctors of today would do, and the news media of yesterday wouldn't do what CNN, if it was a Republican president, well, we gotta investigate this, or Fox, if it was a Democratic president. Say, it's 100 years from now, say poor Biden croaks 100 years after, and that's what I'm waiting for August 2nd, to see if he croaks on the same day, 100 years later. But after he croaked, everything fell apart. He came with the Teapot Dome scandal and all the other scandals that happened, and all the notice, like you say, oh yeah, Mr. Trump paid Stormy Daniels $100 and some $1,000 to shut her up. Hey, Mr. Warren G. Harding did the same thing about this one woman. And this other woman, her name was Nan Britton. He had a daughter with her, which wasn't until she passed, just before she passed away in 2015, was it confirmed that she was actually the daughter of Warren G. Harding. Yet you don't see today's media saying anything about that. Oh, that happened 100 years ago. Who cares today? Really? You still bring up Watergate. That happened 50 plus years ago, or 50 years ago. Yeah? What do you bring up Watergate for? In fact, that was 50 years after Mr. Warren G. Harding croaked. See, media? Because you don't have discretion like they did back then. A lot of media people knew about Mr. Harding and his little interesting affairs he had. Especially in Ohio. Oh yeah, and you don't report that when he passed away, he was sent to Marion, Ohio, and he lingered in the morgue in Marion, Ohio for a while until they found money to build his memorial. Ah, you didn't know about that, huh? Yeah. His wife and the doctor, so-called doctor, he was a quack. I would classify him as Rasputin. Yeah. They died a year later in 1924 under mysterious circumstances. And to this day, you don't know what happened. You don't know exactly what happened to President Harding either. They embalmed him so they couldn't do anything. And he lingered in Marion, Ohio's morgue until they built his little mausoleum, who's still there today. And the people in Marion, Ohio are very hush-hush about that. You ever gone to Marion, Ohio and asked about President Warren G. Harding? And the old people, oh, when I did that in 1979, woohoo! Did I? Yeah. Oh, boy. They wanted me out of the town in a hurry. Even the sheriff came up to me and said, boy, we don't ask questions like that in this town. How long are you staying? Can you be out by 6 p.m. today? He acted like it was a sundown town. Yeah. So you see, Mr. Harvey, to continue your thing on discretion and the other thing, I forget what it was that you had there. Oh, integrity. There is no such thing today on journalists since you were around. The last one I know was Walter Cronkite and Peter Jennings were the last two integrity. Then you can add, Walter Cronkite didn't like his successor, Dan Rather, because he didn't have integrity. Neither did Mr. Brian Williams, who succeeded the NBC guys. Hunter Brinkley. And who succeeded Peter Jennings? Well, he had a whole bunch of guys who succeeded him. And some of them had bad things. The guy and the girl, well, the girl had an alcoholic problem, Mr. Vargas. And the guy, he went to Iraq and got shot up, and boy, he was in dire straits. So I can't say anything about those two. Because Ms. Vargas is still around doing extra shows. I still see Bob, I forget what his last name is, occasionally on ABC, but he's not the same guy that he was. But integrity, heck, like I said, even Wolf Blitzer has lost that at CNN. And I thought he would be one of the last guys to have integrity and discretion. American people should know stuff when it's beneficial for them to know it, but not the gossip. If you were around in the old days when the lady had the phone and she knew exactly what happened on the town, that's what journalists came out to be today. They're like that lady on the phone, where everybody would call her, oh, can you transfer me to this? And she would listen what was going on. She knew exactly what was going on. So there was no such thing as private conversation or privacy. There isn't any today. So, Mr. Harvey, as a successor to you, and I'm not a journalist, just somebody who honors the old concept of journalism, as you did, it is relegated to the past. Sitting in for Paul Harvey, this is your favorite alien with Mr. Harvey and the boss saying good day.